Good morning, Pat.
Hey, Chris, how's it going?
It's good. Great to see
Good.
you.
Yeah, thank you. Same here. Very much so.
So, what are we going to do on Holy Compost today?
Well, we've got a bunch of stuff swirling around, I think, as always. One of the things we spoke about doing was both of us try our hand at poetry. And um, I think much of what we do has a spiritual theme to it. That's not always true for me, but I feel it's very true for you that the creative spirit is alive and well in you. And so what we're going to do, we're going to open with a poem that somebody wrote that's right on the screen, and it's not me. And it's entitled Yield, which just the word yield brings something up in me. Yield? I don't know. We'll see. See if I can yield. I can do it on the highway, which is good because I wouldn't be here if I didn't figure that one out. But anyway, yield. I will visit you in a new way, not in the way you expected. I will come to you as you sit in traffic or in line at the cash register. In your exhaustion, if you search for me, stop. Rest in me. Be still. Fall limp into my arms. Cease all effort. Quiet the chatter. Yield to the vastness. Stop. Open your heart. Be the nothingness. Meet me there. No talking, no praying with words. My presence is all around you. In the worn out people you see, in the tree branch decomposing into waste, which is the soil for new life. Your average day is where I hide. You think I'm absent, but I am every breath, in every note of your speaking music. Millions of years ago, I made you. I was lonely and needed your presence, your soul embrace. The more soul embrace you give me, the more inspiration I have. Even just hold my hand and my heart lights up on fire with tenderness. Let's remember on the journey together. Remember, I do not meet you in the ways you expect, but cease all effort and fall into my arms. My heart will ignite. Beautiful. Beautiful.
Cease all efforts. That's such a important thing for me now. Cease all effort. Because the effort itself can derail. It can send us in the wrong direction. Effort.
Yeah, because I think effort often, not always, includes willfulness. At least that's my experience. I don't see it at first, I think, oh, I'm just, I'm doing something that needs to be done, or I can tell this is what is necessary, or how ridiculous. I mean, I might know I need to have supper. I mean, short of that, I'm not sure why I think I know what is needed. Yeah. It's beautiful. It has that piece of poetry has a beautiful expansiveness to it, gives us permission to be us. And I think maybe we've forgotten how to be us.
Well, everybody's telling us not to be. Everybody's telling us to, including our own egos, are telling us to conform. Don't stand out. you know, it's funny. My husband has a beard, and I can't tell you how many people literally tell him to shave. It's like, it's like, okay, it's not your business.
It's not your beard.
It's not your beard. But I mean, it happens. It happens on a regular basis.
What do you
So
think that's about?
it's a really good question.
Hmm.
Um, I think it's a very direct instead of indirect way of telling people conform.
I would agree. I would agree. Yeah,
And it's almost always said with a little humor in it.
right.
Um, because I
Right.
think that there's an awareness that it's not really appropriate.
And let's take that another step. Why conform? Why must we conform?
Well, that's the $64 million question. Another one. How many millions are we up to now?
I think a billion.
I think a billion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, conform. Your non-conforming is uncomfortable for me. I'm
Mm.
thinking it's something around that.
Yep.
It's uncomfortable to see you so blatantly not conforming. You know what though, Chris? I definitely think that's still happening. But I actually think it's happening less than it once did. Like for instance, yesterday, speaking of beards, I'm in Hannaford's and I'm walking through the fruits and vegetables. And there's a guy with a deep red, like that deep red, not the bright, fiery red beard. And he's got a braid coming off the end of his beard that's like, this long, and it's beautifully done. And I mean, I had to say, nice braid. And he smiled. He knew his braid was good. So I mean, I think that, you know, we're allowing more of that, more of people deciding what they want to do with their appearances. Yeah, I'm thinking that's happening more, which is good. But we have other ways to keep the conforming up,
Right.
have
So
the
so your question, why do we need to conform?
yeah,
That's a really big one.
it is. It is. Again, thinking of something I saw recently. Yesterday, I watched this fellow who does a morning little talk and then meditation. And his theme yesterday was, why do you think you need somebody to give you permission to be free?
Mm.
It's really good. It was really good. And he said, I'll tell you what, he says, I'm giving you permission. And then he went into it and really just pulled the curtain away around what he was claiming. And I agree with him that nobody can give you freedom. You already have it. It's already yours. It's a birthright. And it was just I mean, he said there can be a lot of facades and attempts to convince you that you're not free, but you are free. So he just did a nice job on it.
Nice.
Yeah. So back to the conforming, I'm thinking that the conforming is, if I conform, I'll be free, which of course is ridiculous. It doesn't, it's cognitive dissonance or whatever the term is.
Well, I'll be free of other people's judgments. I'll protect myself from people's bad thoughts about me because I'll be like everybody else.
Yeah. But in that action is the trap.
Right.
So I think that's what's happening. I think that's what's happening, globally now, is this shift from the classic control of the masses to outcroppings, including what we spoke about a little bit earlier before we got online, the insurrection. And we're not going to go right there now, but one could say that was a big take that by that group of people.
It was a big beard.
It was a big beard. Huge. We could call it a Santa Claus beard if we wanted to.
And there was a lot of other stuff in it too, which, as you say, we won't go into now. It's a complex thing, but
right.
yeah. So, what you mentioned your thoughts about yielding. What's that about?
Yeah. Well, I can say off the top that that's not my go-to in life, to yield. I'll keep it on the I. I think my interpretation of this culture is to yes, to yield, but at the same time look like you're not, like it gets very confusing. We're the individualist culture, the US, we're individuals. We do our own thing, yada, yada. No, sir, that's not true. Nope. We're in a lockstep, and when we break out of that, we're under suspicion, big time, no matter how that looks, I mean, we could even say, your husband's beard is no, I'm not doing the lockstep.
Right. Exactly. Very, very much his own man. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's why people are like, why don't you shave that off? Come on.
So how about not bragging about your being authentic?
Yeah. Yeah. Stop that stuff. Well, yeah, it makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you think God's perception is about being in lockstep? I mean, we have this ego. So, God gave us an ego.
Yep.
And God gave us we have an innate or God-given ability or feature in our makeup to be wanting to conform.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So there must have been a reason for that, a divine reason for that. Now,
yeah, I'm thinking something really strange, that you remember I don't remember exactly the biblical story about the lost sheep, like the shepherd's like, oh God, I gotta go find that lost sheep, and bring them back to the pack. Now I'm thinking, if God has if he's noticing, of course he's noticing. If God gets himself, herself, itself, in a thought or in a dialogue with himself about the lost sheep, he's like, thank God they're all lost now. They're all lost. It's what I've been waiting for. I told you it was the way of thought. But I also I mean it in a certain way. I think the biblical stories can at times have purpose being, in that case, be in the herd. Don't have the shepherd going chasing you all over the place. And
it's interesting. It's interesting because my perception of the lost sheep is how distraught I feel when somebody I love is lost.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And how I want to go immediately to find them. If it's lost emotionally, spiritually, if they're in pain, if they literally lost, but isn't it interesting how these biblical stories never really give an answer. They never give an answer, and they don't even really have very strong signposts in my perception. That
Yeah,
there's always a lot of ambiguity, and which I
exactly.
think is life. That's life.
I totally agree. And I'm thinking that those quote lost sheep are those who veer off the path and that we think we really need to rescue and make things better for them. I'm wondering about that.
What do you wonder?
Well, I'm wondering if that's true. That I mean, or if that's what we should be doing. Do we interrupt somebody's process, even if it means they die? Um, hard, hard, hard. But the design, if we believe in a divine energy, the design is there. The design is what it is, and we can offer a path, but to decide it's what's necessary and needed, and I've got to push this thing and I've got to make it happen, then I think we're in the wrong territory.
Yeah, I mean that is such a slippery slope for me. I want to save people all the time,
Yeah.
and I have to just recently, I mean, this has been most of my life. Just recently, I've decided I really need to, when I see someone who's lost in whatever way, I want to find them. I want to fix it. And so and so maybe that's not God's plan. Maybe because how many times in the 12-step program have we seen people um, get into addiction and appear to be almost dying from it and then come back, and they come back with um, this new dimension to their soul emerges, and their soul comes to the front, to the fore, instead of being hidden somewhere. Because they realize in the 12-step program that we're all lovable, we're all worthy, we're all included, we're all loved, and and that's such a powerful thing that I think people just transform because of it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And like I said, I want to be clear that I don't think that we should ignore somebody that's obviously crying for help, even though that's not what it looks like. I think that you just mentioned the 12 steps. So that's what the meetings are about, people sitting around sharing their experience, strength, and hope. And a newcomer comes in, and if they are desperate enough, and if they are surrendered, at least to some extent, which they would be if they go, even walking into an AA meeting is a surrender. And begins to hear people who have come through, the jungle, then the offering is there. That's what I mean. That should always be available, because what else would it be? Well, I got mine, and if we did the commodification value of how the culture runs, I've got mine, too bad about you. That's not what the 12 steps is about. Exactly the opposite. I've got mine, and I'll share it with you if you are interested. So the word yield, to bring us back there, I think that's what's happening when somebody walks into an AA meeting or any kind of 12-step meeting, is they've yielded just enough so they didn't get hit by that truck, that 16-wheeler coming down the highway. They just got off in time and they went into a meeting and they've yielded. So yield is a very powerful word. We've talked about how surrender, there's many words that say the same thing about surrendering. Yielding is one of them. But to interfere in the process more than making an offering, a heartfelt offering to somebody who's in trouble, and they're at a point where they don't have the willingness to grab the ring on the going around the merry-go-round the next time. That's I think where we need to be careful, because in fact we could be stopping a process. We could be getting in the middle of a process and hurt that person's ability to form the strength that they need to take the next small step. So that, we've talked about codependency before, how we can get, lost in that. Where do I end and the other person begin, and what's theirs and what's mine? I think that can get very confusing for people. So, yeah, the 12 steps is a perfect example of making the offering, being ready to accompany someone when they are ready, but not.
Well, the other thing I think is so life-changing is that, we want you to come to the meeting. We want you to know that you're welcome. And if you're interested in my experience, I'll share it with you. And I'll be there for you. I'll be there for you. Period. I'll be there for you if I'm in a party, or if I'm on vacation, if I'm in the shower. I'll be there for you if you need me.
Yeah.
And this is what we needed when we were, 2 and 3 and 1 and 8, and many people didn't get it.
Too many.
And that's part of what sometimes people want to deaden that pain by booze or by other drugs.
Yeah. Or behaviors.
Right.
Yeah. So I think that what we're trying to do here is in a way very much.
Close the door, excuse me.
Sure.
Sorry about that.
No problem. I think what we're trying to do, you and I, when we meet like this, is to create a space to speak about things in an open and honest way. I believe we do that because I don't know. I don't know how I'm going to say this, because it's all we've got.
Mm.
I mean, when I say all we've got, I mean it's the only thing that brings us here in this moment and present. Now we might go out while we're sitting here and be reaching, but I think the point of us doing this is that we're meeting together.
Right.
And
it's a meaningful connection.
It's a meaningful connection, and it's like and to me, and this sounds a little weird, it's a form of meditation because it brings me present.
That's a great observation, and it is for me too. Now that you bring that out, I mean, meditation has many forms I've learned in my life. The huge one is being out in nature, and also walking. Walking has that, one foot after the other. That gets you into a rhythm of something. And why do we want to be in meditation? For me, it's boy, it's multi-layered, I'll tell you. And it's gone on for several decades for me, and has had so many iterations.
Mm.
I thought in the beginning of learning contemplative prayer or centering prayer that I would become closer to God, and I definitely do, but it didn't take the form I thought it would take.
Mm.
Um, I guess in the beginning I found being in silence for 20 minutes to be um, there was this rush of divine presence came to me,
Mm.
and it was beautiful. It was everything I needed, and I just wanted more and more of it. So of course my ego decided to try to figure out how it happened so that it could
Mm.
happen again and again and again. And the spirit was having no part of that. The ego was probably happy because it was trying so hard
Yeah.
and there
Yeah.
were no results. And so it took me years to come back from the expectation
Mhm.
of the divine presence in the meditation and realize that um, my expectation was not what was called for in this environment. So
Say that again. Say that again. You're what?
my expectation is not what is called for in the meditation
Mhm.
process.
Mm.
So there's a letting go. There's a openness to fertile ground that's not of my doing.
Right. Right.
Um, that is a precious and rare event. Most of the time in my meditation now, that doesn't happen.
Mhm.
But it um, maybe it calms my mind. Just the process of meditating calms my mind enough so that when I'm in the world, it's easier to absorb that divine presence. It's easier to be open to it.
Mhm.
I don't,
Mhm.
I really don't know how it happens. I just know that I've got more serenity. I've got more inner peace.
Yeah.
I'm not as I'm not as reactive
Yeah.
as I was before I was meditating. Anyway, what has meditation done to you for?
Well, you brought up an interesting word. I think maybe I'm going to start a list of words that are so power packed or so charged, and the word is expectation.
Mm.
Um, so, because I think I have mucho expectations about a lot of things, but it's the buck starts here, starts and stops here. Um, so I think I have extremely outrageous expectations of myself, of how I should be, um, how I shouldn't be, how I should be, and of course, if that's what I'm going to lay on myself, I'm going to be bringing that out in the world, And so I think that word expectation, I think I think we could get rid of it, except for on boiling water. I think that's the only time we should
And
use it.
how did you know? How did you become aware that you have expectations?
Well, I mean, I've thought of it here and there, but it's clearly a problem because um, my being let down by things, by people or life or whatever, is because I have an expectation. Now, if I could get rid of that, then my let down stuff would be eliminated probably.
Isn't there a line? Expectations are the beginning of disappointment.
It's a good one. It's a good one. That fits. Okay, so you can see I've been very disappointed. My God. Except for the boiling water. The boiling water. I'll watch it too, and that's why they say watch pot never boils. It's really funny. I mean, we have all of these metaphorical messages all over the place. And they're there for a reason. Like somebody had a brainstorm one day. Geez, the longer I stare at this pot of water, the longer it takes for it to boil. That's weird. And so
So what are your other words? Expectation and what else?
the other word we had spoken about earlier, quite a while ago, actually, was try.
Oh yeah, that's a big one.
That's a loaded one, try. But I thought maybe over the course of us talking and like this and visiting, oh, excuse me, we may find those trigger words that are really powerful in the culture.
They are. I had a therapist many, many years ago who told me that the word try was not allowed in his
Mm, mm.
in his office.
Yeah. Yeah, that's funny. I used it too. I would say I would put a pen down or a pencil down on a counter, and I would say to the person I was working with, I'm gonna try to get that thing. Watch me now. Mm, 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 mm. Oh, I can't get it. So it's just sort of a visual to show that trying probably means let's see, probably means not ready to do it.
That's right.
Yeah.
I'm not ready for
Yeah.
commitment.
Not ready.
I want a backdoor exit.
That's right. Because I know what that is. It's actually a swinging door now. It's just like, here she comes. So those are the two words we've got so far in our work here, our visiting: expectation and try, or trying. I know there's more, but the interesting thing about our language, or any language, is these words, they're impactful.
Yes, they are.
I mean, they're the way that we, I guess this is a little bit of a stretch, or maybe too big shoddy here. But it's the way that we avoid living. It's the way we avoid life.
Yeah.
That's what I'm.
Yeah. So if there's
control.
There's a backdoor exit, I never really have to be all in.
And that's what we get. We get a half-hearted life.
Yeah.
There's a poem there, Chris. Half-hearted life. Let's work on that.
Okay. Speaking of poems, there's another one that we wanted to read. Do you have that available?
I do. So this one is entitled, "Let Your Love Be Ceaseless." Okay. Care for thy heart tenderly. Let life go as it will, and love thyself. Give thyself all of thyself. Forgive others and love thyself. Be kind to others. Love from thy heart and love thyself. Bestow freely thy love to all. Nurture all of life and love thyself. In one word, love, 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 until forever and the day after forever. It's pretty simple, but boy, if I could do that, woo. But see, that's an expectation.
That's true. Well, but yeah. These things are tricky, aren't they? I mean, everything in life is tricky.
Seems it.
Expectations. So what are the things that are like, I'm thinking to myself, I have this mantra that comes up almost every day now, because my parents died when they were younger than I am now. So I keep thinking, I have one more day or 10 more years or 20 more years, who knows? And I always say to myself, time's a waste, and what are you going to do today that you are going to be, it's going to be rewarding, that you're going to feel good about afterwards.
Mm.
And I get very annoyed at things like food and paying the bills, and all those things kind of get in the way, of my spending time the way I wanted to spend it, which is pretty much being outside as much as possible, and fiddling in my garden, and taking walks and smelling the air, and just that's a huge meditation for me. Completely.
Mm.
There's very little ego. I mean, there's ego, there's always ego, but there's very little ego in my activities outside, and
Yeah.
a lot of creativity there's not much to show for it, but creativity is I've always had a strong creative um, drive in me since I
Mm.
was, I mean, like I can remember as a little kid. I was, I think I was 5 or 6. I remember loving cash registers, the old cash register where they would press the 5 and press the 6,
Yeah, yeah.
and then they would ring it in. Yeah. And for
Yes.
some reason, I was so enamored of cash register. And my
Interesting.
parents, I even said, "Can I have one?" My parents even asked the store if they would sell an old one, and they were several $100s, which back in the 50s was way too much.
Sure.
And so I made myself a cash register. Now, of course, it didn't make the sound, but at least it was some attempt of
Yeah.
getting that pleasure. Anyway,
Yeah. Interesting.
yeah. But
Mm.
it's the creative process, and
Yeah.
it's nurtured me. I always want to give a disclaimer: creativity does not presume quality.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
Yeah.
it's the process of creating something. I mean, it could be something that's really ugly or really stupid, or and so I never evaluate what I want to create, and I never evaluate it afterwards. It's just the
Mm-hmm.
process
Mm-hmm.
that is so
Yeah.
life-giving to me. Like yesterday, I
Yeah.
decided to
Well,
dig a new garden, and I mean, that's just nothing sexy about that, but it was just pleasure from the beginning to the end.
yeah. Yeah. I totally hear that. I just realized a couple more words while you were talking that, that's woven in our culture. And one is quality.
Mm,
I mean, in and of itself, that word, what's its quality?
mm,
What does that mean? I mean, it could mean a couple of things. It could mean, what does it represent? What is its quality? But more often in our culture, we are, qualifying, labeling, um, uh, categorizing. I mean, I get that has to be done at some level. I guess it has to be done. I'm not even sure about that, the categorizing. Because I mean, what kind of beans am I going to buy? Am I going to buy you know? Um, but I think we then take that concept of categorization or labeling, and we just spread it all over the place, and to include people, and
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
um, so again, words that are needed, but we use them we use them against humanity in some ways, so I think that's important to think about. Like, why do we have to always do that? Why do we always have to summarize at the end of something we might share with someone? And so I think it was this, and this. Why can't we just leave it there? Why do we do that? So it's just interesting. I mean, I do it all the time. So I'm trying to be aware of that, because I think that spills over into other things. Like if something happens that feels very difficult between two people, both people are going to dissect what happened according to their own experience of that thing and their previous life, and then make some determination around well, obviously my estimation of what happened is truer than yours.
And in the meantime, you could be on two different planets in terms of
Totally.
what you're
Totally.
thinking about happened.
Right. How about we ask questions of one another at the end of a difficult exchange instead of pronouncements?
So can you think of a generic question in that situation?
Yeah, I mean, generic. I mean, we see it in the criminal justice system all the time, where, somebody gets accused of something, enough information is brought forward to form a conclusion, and then the person, the quote bad person versus the good person, if it was a two-person confrontation of some type, why is that person, what makes that person bad? Because something happened. Why do we then sort of throw the blanket of, blame, shame, whatever you want to call it, upon someone? How does that help at all in what took place, if it was a crime of some type? What maybe help's not the right word. How does that qualifying, or how does the judgment make everything better? How does it do that? Does it make anything better by?
We were talking about this yesterday, I think, about the criminal justice system, because you've worked in it, and I've volunteered in it, and it's that's been something that I've just had to walk away from, because it's somebody once said, if changing the criminal justice system is like turning an ocean liner around, it takes a lot of effort and a huge amount of time. So
Totally. I worked in the system, as you mentioned, and I remember this guy, his first name was Paul, and we were standing at the counter one day, the probation counter, just talking. And he said something to me I've never forgotten. We all have those experiences that something happened years and years and years ago. We can remember right where we were, what was said. And this is one of those things. And I was talking to him, and I think I was doing sort of like a Pollyanna, which I could do because it's easy. And he's like, Pat, don't you realize that this system is a mirage? Or that might not have been the word he used, but it was something like that. And I said, what do you mean a mirage? He says, it's not real.
Mm.
And I was like, Paul, what do you, come on, get to the cut to the chase. He says, we are just pretending that we're doing something, and we're doing nothing. It was so amazing. It was so amazing. And I mean, he did take, he popped my bubble, because I actually thought, and I think, let me just interject this. I think that on a one-on-one personal level, that maybe if a person who comes through that system is at a turning point and they have grace has befallen them and they are ready to change, then it happens. But that could happen at the corner grocery store. That could happen at a church. That could happen anywhere. So it happens in the court system also, because people are up against it and they're, they've got a big wake up call, right? But the system itself does nothing but push papers around and put people behind bars and keep the status quo of, this is how we deal with people who don't follow the rules. And we don't care why they don't. We don't care if they were not fed any supper for weeks and went to bed hungry. We don't care about that. We care about keeping others safe.
And why we can't, as many other countries can, why we can't support people when they're, when they're in a bad situation in their life, when they're in a vulnerable situation in their life. Yeah.
Yep. We it's like the heart the heart has gone out of many, or if not all, our systems.
Yeah, it's so true. And other countries, I mean, I don't know if anyone's doing it really great, but other countries are doing it better than we are.
Yeah,
I think of
Scandinavians.
I think of Finland and
Yep.
Norway and Sweden.
Yep. Yep.
And of course the African tribes that we, I think, don't know anything about. I
Right.
think they're just remote enough, and both remote geographically and remote enough psychically, maybe.
Yep. Another word just came up.
What's that?
Foreign.
Foreign.
Yep. That's another one of them words.
Yeah. Oh, foreigner. Yeah.
Yeah. I think we pride ourselves in our country. Maybe we wouldn't pronounce it this way, but we already know everything.
Mm.
We already know everything. We don't have anything to learn. We can create and invent more things, but don't mess up my how I cope.
Mm. Well, and I think people who are in that frame of mind got there through pain.
Yes.
Because when we're facile and um, um, imaginative and creative and willing to walk into unfamiliar places in any way, we're not thinking that way. So
Right.
we're the Holy Spirit is trying to knock on our door every day, and I think I mean it certainly is true for me. It may not be true for other people, but I just know what's happening in my little side of the street.
Yeah, no, and I agree with you. The only thing I'd add for me is that my ability to recognize grace, the Holy Spirit, whatever, it's so changeable. I mean, it's just, and maybe that's, again, maybe that's okay. Maybe that's okay. I guess it has to be, because it is what is, right? That it takes me a long time to be aware of the spirit of love that is saying, come over here. It's like, no, wait a minute, I'm not ready. I mean, what's that about?
Oh, I don't know what it is. I remember being in my old house probably 15 years ago, and things were very stressful for us at that point. It was the recession, and um I I I was just my head was just, this whole thing about responsibility all the time, and what do I have to do and what do I need to do, and I'm so afraid, and I got to prevent this from happening, and all this stuff. And I realized, I sat down just out of the blue and I thought, what do I value in life?
Mm.
So, well, I value love, and I value beauty, and I value creativity, um, and union with God, um, and being with my loved ones. And none of that can happen when I'm in this frame of mind of of anxiety.
Mm.
None of that can happen. So
Mm.
I realized that um, I was permitting um, the bad things in my life to rob me of the things I valued. And
Yeah. Yeah.
I decided that that was not the way I wanted to live.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and that was a moment of
That's really,
grace.
yeah, I was just gonna say that's really super. You cut out a couple of times, unfortunately, while you were talking. Got most of it, but you did cut out. So, what what do you suppose brought you to, and this is just the question, how I'm asking the question, maybe not the right way. What do you suppose brought you to be at a point where you allowed grace um to come to land,
I mean,
whatever?
I think that will always be a mystery for me. Um,
Mm,
I think that
mm, yeah,
grace does
yeah,
interject, or in my life, grace does interject without being asked
yeah,
to.
yeah, yeah.
Um, and um, I mean, for years I had a mantra for many years, long ago, a prayer: knock on my door when I forget about you.
Mm,
Dear God, knock on my door when I forget about you. And I would just say it
mm,
like several times every day, because
yeah.
um, I realized that the forgetting was habitual, and it was happening every day, many, many times. And it probably always would. And that's actually how things have turned out in my life, that the forgetting about the thing I value most, which is God's presence. Um, I forget constantly.
Mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm.
I still do.
Yeah,
So
I was just, yeah, sorry.
go ahead.
No, I'm very much what you were saying. So about grace, it's funny because we all think about grace, and and like you said, simply it's a mystery. Um, that said, though, um, what I could see retrospect, is that what I want to say? Retrospectfully? Yeah.
If
Um, is is that before I got sober, what was happening to me, and I think we often think of grace, at least I do, as one thing that just swoops in, and it, you're like, oh wow, your eyes are open. But I my experience of what I think grace also does is it does these little almost like a, hey, you want to see a nice snapshot? And a snapshot comes. And by that I mean an experience happens, small or significant, but it's one of those times where it pulls you up. You're pulled up by it, something that happened. So in the case that I was just talking about, getting before to, tremendous alcoholic all of his life up until his late 70s, he got sober. He got sober. And I was like, what? I was still drinking at that time.
Is this your father?
Yes, my
Yeah.
dad. Yeah. And so, again, retrospectively, when that happened, I was really like jarred by it. So it's this jarring that happens, I think, in our lives. And we're kind of like, that doesn't fit my concepts. That doesn't fit how I think the world's supposed to work. That's not supposed to happen. He's not supposed to get sober and make me look at my drinking. Oh, come on now. So that was one. Another one that I won't go into very deeply, but was a friend that I drank with. I wasn't really close to her, but she killed herself. She killed herself with a gun.
Oh.
And I, again, I went, what the heck is that? Why didn't I see that? Why didn't I know that was going to happen? What does that mean? And then there were just a number of these things. It was almost like my armor, my alcoholic armor, was being chink until there were enough chinks. And maybe the chinks happen right here at the heart, maybe they're right here, these things. And then it's like, it's like the house of cards falls. And all of these false narratives of course I drank, I mean, you drink too if you had my life, come on. And I got a reason I'm drinking. And all of a sudden, none of that made sense. It was like it all fell away. And I didn't feel fear when that happened. I felt relief.
Mm-hmm.
I felt relief. I can do something about this. I can do something about this. Who placed that thought in my mind? Who helped me arrive at that thought? I don't think it was me. something tells me it wasn't me that said that it came into me, or it was in me and it came out of me. Maybe it's both at the same time. But anyway, yeah, grace. We could talk about grace from now until the end of time, and we still wouldn't know what we were talking about.
It's astonishing, it's surprising, it's unpredictable, it's life-changing. It's magnificent. I feel myself getting teared up.
Yeah, I hear you, Chris. Yeah. I hear you. And how many times, the other question in reference to what I just shared about, having these things happen, how many times has something really relevant or important or a life-changing happened that I turned my head? I'm sure dozens upon dozens.
Yeah.
1 dozen.
Well, I mean, it's
so there's the
probably thousands or millions of because I feel like every person that we walk by on the street is a miracle, and every tree is a miracle, and God lives inside of these creations invisibly. And so, yeah, if we're not astonished, we're not paying attention.
Let me add a couple of things to where God is. Every empty thought, God is. Every failed attempt at meditation, God is. Every heartbreak, God is. And so I guess what I'm saying is God is in the good, the bad, and the ugly, and the painful, and the life-altering. And yeah, if I didn't truly believe in that, what we do here and that we talk about, I would not see the point of any of it.
Mhm.
And I can get there. I can get in those places where I'm disconnected, and I will be thinking, what is the point? And when I'm thinking, what is the point? God is there.
Mm.
And so, yeah,
It's a
it's
it's the
not, yeah,
perfect way to end our morning session together on such a beautiful note. Um, yeah, I'm gonna be thinking about that all day and being grateful for it.
me too. Me too.
So until next week, great to see you.
Yes. Good to see you
And
as always.
the next Holy Compost, here we come.
And I need to say it. I love you.
I love you too, dear friend.
Take care.